Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Shri Saraswatyai Namaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Pada Shankaram Loka Shankaram Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. So in last class, we saw about Viveka. We saw what are the fourfold qualifications that is needed for the Adhikari of this text. And the first qualification or the first wealth that we saw was that of Viveka. So today we are going to see the next one, which is called the Vairagya. So we will directly jump into the verse. So here it is. This is the next verse that we are going to see today. Viragaha kaha. Iha swarga bhogeshu icharahityam. So it's all very simply Bhagwan has said here. Viragaha kaha. Iha swarga bhogeshu icharahityam. So Vairagya is the dispassion, which is the absence of desire for the enjoyment. Enjoyment of what? Fruits of one's action in this world and also in that of the heavens. So this is the verse that we are going to see today. So dispassion or detachment, all these are very scary words, isn't it? So today, especially we use the word passion quite a bit. We use it very passionately. Oh, you have to be so passionate about the job. She's so passionate about what she's doing. Her speech was so passionate. So passion is something that we all feel is a very nice quality, and how can you not be passionate, and all these things come into play. And also when we talk about detachment, people immediately think about leaving everything behind and running away to Himalayas, sitting in a cave and meditating. So these are the common thoughts or ideas that comes into mind when we say the word detachment or dispassion, isn't it? So, but that is actually not the case. Here in this verse, Bhagwan clearly explains towards what we should have dispassion, isn't it? So he has clearly mentioned that we should have dispassion or detachment towards the fruits of our action. So we will see about that a little bit today. Vairagya is a very misunderstood concept, especially one of the reasons why people feel if we study Vedanta and everything, we become very detached, and that is a kind of a deterrent for people to not pursue these studies, isn't it? But that is actually not the case. So we will take a little bit of time exploring about Vairagya today, all right? So in the first class itself, we had already explored that there is an ultimate reason behind why we do what we do. So there will be one surface reason, and if we dig deeper and deeper, there will be one ultimate reason, or the primary reason for why we do what we do. All right. So, but before we go to the ultimate reason, before we reach that ultimate reason, there are so many superficial reasons that come into play, all right? And these superficial reasons often spins a story of their own, and this causes a lot of mental agitation and disturbance. So let us see this with an example, all right? So you are working in a company, and there is a promotion that is going to come up. It's the promotion cycle. So it's you and a couple of another peers of yours who are in the same grade, and you all are working towards the promotion. So obviously the promotion is going to be based on assessment of the work done all through the year, right? So every work that you do, you're thinking about the promotion. and you're already thinking what all we can do once we get a promotion. Obviously, it's going to involve a salary hike, which means you can buy new stuff for your home, or you can close off your EMI, or you can go on a nice trip. So you immediately start, thinking about, oh, if I get this promotion, then I'll be able to do all these things, and you're very excited, and that's really motivating you to do well. So you keep putting in all the efforts. You also do the appraisal and everything. And unfortunately, the promotion goes to one of their peers. So how will we feel at that time? We feel so dejected, right? We feel, why the hell did I put in all the efforts? Anyway, I didn't get. So if you feel cheated, you feel dejected, you feel like utterly demotivated, and you're like, it's not worth it. And probably people mostly quit their jobs because they didn't get the promotion that they thought they deserved. Isn't it? Isn't this something that we all have faced in our life at some point or the other? So here is where dispassion comes into play. So remember what happens. You were expecting a certain fruit of the action to come into play, and you had already built up a mental castle about what all will happen when you get that promotion. But unfortunately, it didn't happen, even though you had put in all the efforts. And that leads us to make bad decisions, feel depressed, demotivated, dejected. And it happens in everyday life also. Even within family, it happens, isn't it? We feel, oh, we are giving our 100% to these family members, but nothing is coming back to me. I'm not even being offered a cup of coffee for all the efforts that I put, isn't it? So we also feel that way. We feel it in almost every walks of life. So here Bhagavan is reminding us that action alone is in our hand, and the fruit of the action is definitely not in our hand. So he is asking us to let go of that factor towards which we have no control. It makes sense logically, isn't it? Would you want to expend our energy on something that we have no control on? We wouldn't want to do that, right? Logically, we wouldn't want to do that. But that is what we keep doing every day, isn't it? That's where our automatically our mental patterns prompt us to think about the fruit of action rather than the action itself. And it is only this fruit of action that Bhagavan is asking us to let go of. Another common, so before we go further, there are some common misconceptions about Vairagya, right? So people think Vairagya is just that sheer willpower. Oh, you know what? That person, no, he never eats outside food. He has so much Vairagya that he won't eat outside food. And we also use it in parlance like, oh, that woman, she never speaks to that person, someday, sometime in the past days, did blah, blah, blah. So from that day onwards, she never even looks at their face. These kind of things are commonly used when people think about Vairagya, like things like brute force or just sheer willpower is what people associate Vairagya with. But that is actually not the case. The root of Vairagya lies in Viveka. Last class, we saw in detail about Viveka, isn't it? It is the ability of the intellect to distinguish, to discriminate, to categorize, to organize, so on and so forth. And here, Viveka is especially defined as understanding or differentiating between the permanent and the impermanent. All right. So true Vairagya is born of Viveka. Vairagya and Viveka both go hand in hand, all right? They are like two wings of the bird. Both are required for the bird to take flight. So we effortlessly let go of what is not serving us, what is agitating our mind, what is destroying our peace, when we have a clear understanding that these are the factors that is causing me trouble in my life, isn't it? When we understand, the process of letting go of them becomes easier. And once we clear off all this mental clutter, how will our life be? It will be so much more easier, lighter, full of joy, and absolutely effortless, isn't it? This letting go of those that is not serving us anymore is called Vairagya. And we all want to do that, isn't it? And Bhagavan says in a very succinct manner, the only thing that we have to consciously let go is the fruits of our action. All right. So why is he so specific about the fruits of the action? All right, there are two things to it. One, we already saw, fruits of the action is something that is absolutely not there in our control. So the only logical thing for us to do is not worry about things that are not in our control. That's what common sense tells us, isn't it? Second thing is, fruits of the action happens in the future, about which we have no idea. Too many variables coming into play, and something that is so unpredictable at the end of the day, isn't it? And but rather, action is always in the present. So he is telling us to focus on the action itself rather than the fruits of the action. What does it mean? It indirectly means that focus on the present, stay in the present moment, all right? And don't worry about the future. See, most of our anxiety, worry, and even most of the actions that we do are driven because of our insecurity towards the future, isn't it? It's not a bad thing. Like, for example, we always say, oh, I have to save up for my retirement. I have to take care of my health so that in old age, I don't become a burden to others. All these are very valid things. And most of the action, these are like just examples, but most of our actions are driven towards our future state of being, isn't it? Every action that we do it with our future state of being considered in the picture. So while that is good, once you start the action, it doesn't serve us if we go on thinking about this future. We have to really focus on the task in hand. So this is what is the true result of Vairagya. We will become so much more focused, enthusiastic, energetic, free from worries, free from anxiety once we start practicing Vairagya. Isn't this what we all want in our life? Yeah, so that is a little bit about Vairagya. And another thing is, the more Viveka that we have, the more Vairagya that we get. The more clarity we have about what is short term, what is long term, what is serving me, what is not serving me, what is good for me, what is not good for me. The more clarity we have, the stronger the Vairagya in us develops. We effortlessly start letting go of things that are no longer serving us, that are no longer good for us. And we all know already. It's just that we are not able to let go, right? But once we have developed this very strong discriminative faculty, then automatically the letting go becomes easier, because we then have very strong conviction that, yes, I have to do this. By doing this, I am going to get ultimately benefited. So because that conviction becomes very strong, then the Vairagya also becomes a lot more effortless. So the converse is also true. Okay, if we have no discrimination whatsoever and we are just, blindly blundering around in our life, then there will be absolutely no Vairagya, because we have no clarity. Create more Vairagya, more Viveka. So Viveka and Vairagya are like, they feed off each other, right? Building one automatically builds the other, and the other also starts feeding and strengthening the first one. So these two grow hand in hand. That is an important thing that we have to remember. And also, let's see the big picture now. So what happens as we go on building this Viveka and Vairagya? Our intellect gets sharper, the mind becomes very clear, okay? So, and remember, we saw what Viveka ultimately is all about. It is about knowing what is permanent and what is impermanent. And we clearly saw that the reality, the Brahman, that alone is permanent and everything else is impermanent, isn't it? That's what we saw about Viveka. So by this time, we would have also realized that finite actions, we all can do only finite actions, right? As human beings, because we are finite beings. The body is finite, the mind is finite. We are finite beings as long as we identify with this body. And finite beings can do only finite actions. And finite actions will only give us finite joy, finite happiness, not infinite. And what we all truly want infinite, unending happiness. Isn't it? That's what we all want, right? So here is where the Vairagya clicks in. Once we are very, very clear that everything in this world is impermanent, everything in this apparent universe is impermanent, and that reality alone is permanent, Vairagya comes in and says, why are you bothered about all these finite, impermanent things? Start focusing on the reality, start focusing on the permanent, start focusing on the infinite. This is where Viveka and Vairagya kicks in the ultimate sense. Okay. So here letting go means not getting affected by them. Okay. So yeah. And as Gurudev says, what Gurudev Swami Chinmayananda says, he says the key to detachment is attachment. Detach from the lower, attach to the higher. So instead of focusing on detaching from the lower, once we automatically start attaching ourselves to the higher, then Vairagya becomes very easy and very effortless. Great. So how to cultivate this Vairagya? One thing that we already saw, clear understanding of what is short term, what is long term, and focusing and subjectively understanding what is beneficial for us in the long term and attaching to it will help us build Vairagya. And similarly, becoming very mindful and living in the present. This requires a little bit of understanding and the constant vigilance of our thoughts, right? Like we have to be aware where the mind is roaming. As Gurudev says, mind is either roaming in the past, thinking about what all had happened, what all sorrows befell us, or we are thinking about happy, pleasant memories. On the other hand, the mind is either thinking about the future, like either thinking of what can go right, what can go wrong, how will things be if they're all different, so on and so forth. But the mind is very rarely staying in the present. So the more and more we start being in the present moment, the more and more Vairagya we build, because in the present moment, you can't be attached to the fruits of your action. All right. So practicing this awareness, cultivating this awareness to see where our thoughts, where our energy, mental energy is expended, will help us bring in an understanding about our own mental patterns and help us stay in the present. All right. And another easy way that we just saw is to attach to the higher. So the higher can be anything, your God, your guru, or even your own higher values and principles, isn't it? So the more we focus on bigger, better things, I'm not talking about earning more money or like getting the promotion, but all these value-based things, that's what we are discussing here. The God, the guru, or your own ideals and principles, the more we attach to it, detachment from the lower happens a lot more easily. So this is what I wanted to cover today. And today's Vedanta homework for this week is become aware of where your thoughts are. Just check in with your thoughts. See whether you're thinking about the past or whether you're thinking about the future or whether you're staying in the present. When you are in the present, you're just focused on just living in the moment. Mostly there will not be too many thoughts when you're here in the present moment. When we are in the present moment, it will be more like an intuitive feeling that keeps coming up and guiding us mostly. But obviously it's all subjective experience. But just pay attention to where your thoughts are, whether it is in the past, whether it is in the future, or whether you are staying in the present. Just pay attention to this. So this is what we are going to do as our Vedanta homework for this week. All right. So we will finish the class with our closing prayers. I will again share the screen with you all. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। हरिः ॐ श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ॐ।